Chapter 18. Kessa reached the stables in Cyrene a couple hours before dawn. She'd decided not to sleep on the road and had walked straight to the Diamond City. Lying down on her bed, she was relieved it was at least a little more comfortable than the ground. "Kessa?" Quinn's voice awoke her. Cracking an eyelid, she beheld a blurry boy standing in her doorway. "When did you get back?" he asked. Exhausted, she rolled over, waving him away. "So, I can't get your help with the morning chores?" He sounded crestfallen. Sighing with all the irritation a sleepless night afforded, Kessa threw off her covers and swung her feet to the floor. Her affection for the boy wouldn't dare allow her to disappoint him when she could help it. Quinn clapped his hands. "Boy, have I missed you, Kessa. The stables have been crazy lately. I've had so much work to do." Stretching with a yawn, Kessa placated him with a couple ahas as he summarized what had gone on in her absence. When he finished, she was wide awake and grumbling about having to work on an empty stomach. "I'll get you some oatmeal," he offered. "It was really good this morning. Master brought some syrup home from our trip to Shymir a fortnight ago, and I added it, along with some cinnamon." A treat indeed. Shymir's syrup was rare since Cassius's takeover. Sounds delicious. Her stomach gurgled its agreement. After an amazing breakfast, the pair chatted while they mucked stalls, cared for the horses, and tidied up the area. It was mid-afternoon by the time they'd finished. Quinn, gushing gratitude for her help, hurried off to his lessons. Although she was cranky, her heart warmed a little. It was nice to know she'd been missed by someone at least. Celeste was equally, if not happier to see her than Quinn. Kessa promised her a long ride before dark. Sleepy and worn out by the intense physical labor of that day and the long walk from Daisyfield, Kessa took her time getting to headquarters. "You look like the sun set on your birthday," Thomas remarked. He'd just finished running the obstacle course, but the only noticeable traces of exertion were a slightly redder face, accelerated breathing, and a bead or two of sweat on his temples. Kessa had arrived while he was mid-course, so she'd waited patiently, awed by how flawlessly he moved and how easy he made everything look. "It's nice to see you too, sir," she quipped with a smirk. As he wiped his face off with a towel and had a drink of water, Kessa regaled him with stories of her adventures aboard the Pistoria and the completion of her mission. "Yes, I heard," Thomas said. In response to her "take the wind out of my sails" expression, he explained, "You're not the sole spy on our roster, kid, and Reese had a keen interest in the outcome of your assignment." Clasping her hands together, she resisted the impulse to jump up and down as she inquired, "What did he say? Was he pleased?" Of course he was pleased. In just over a year, Kessa had completed the difficult task of uncovering a heavily convoluted scheme and had nicely wrapped everything up with a pretty bow. All three of the barons had been arrested with impending convictions. The council couldn't have asked for more. Thomas scrutinized her for a moment while he debated whether or not to reveal just how thrilled the council was with her performance. He didn't want to overinflate her ego, after all. How did he word it again?" Thomas began mock thoughtfully. "Something about the utmost professionalism and finesse." This time the compulsion to jump up and down won out. Yes, well done, little miss, but don't let it go to your head. Not every mission is going to go so smoothly." Getting her elation under control, Kessa accepted his advice, although she couldn't totally abolish the smile from her face. "Follow me," Thomas said moderately. He led her along the streets of the Diamond City until they reached the ritzy district. Kessa enjoyed herself thoroughly as she took in the unadulterated grandeur of the neighborhood. The lawns were generous and well manicured, spotted with different varieties of bushes and trees, their leaves partially obscuring the mansions farther in. Everything about this area, from the lavish lawns to the brick road to the ornate street lamps, screamed money. Lots of money. They turned down Hibiscus Grove, a quiet, picturesque dirt road lined with its namesake. Realizing that Hibiscus Grove had a dead end, she'd just began to seriously question Thomas's motive for bringing her to this location when he stopped. Putting his hands in his pockets, he leaned against a lamppost and jutted his chin toward a house. It was not a mansion like the other homes on the street, but what it lacked in size, it made up for in charm. Massive wooden beams framed the rectangular 2-story stone building that was topped with a pitched slate roof. 8 front windows, 4 on each story, a quaint front porch, and a brick-bordered front door were attractive features. The house sat relatively close to the road, sacrificing a spacious front lawn in favor of an enormous backyard that boasted a fenced-in pasture, a small stable, and a pond. Kessa felt an immediate connection with the place. "House shopping, Thomas?" Kessa asked. "If so, I entirely approve. Wouldn't mind purchasing the property myself, if I had the means." "What? Tired of the stables?" Her need-you-ask expression was reply enough. He chuckled. "This property would certainly suit you, kid. Your sister, too. It is a fine piece of real estate, if you don't mind living in a home once occupied by a greedy, merciless, deceitful moneylender." "Oh, is this my next assignment?" "Was it the greedy, merciless, deceitful description that gave it away?" "Money lenders in general have it coming." "It's easy to condemn the nasty ones. They're in line for a hefty helping of comeuppance. It's when we're required to destroy the lives of the innocent or undeserving that this job stinks." "I don't think I could do that, Thomas." "Even when it serves the greater good?" "Whose greater good?" Just then the front door of the house swung open. A thin woman of average height emerged. Glossy raven-colored locks curled to her slim waist, swishing as she spun to lock her door. Her skin was like new milk, making her dark brown eyes stand out as they homed in on the pair of them. Thomas caught his breath. Kessa didn't blame him. The woman was beautiful. Then she opened her mouth. "There'll be no handouts here, you filthy tramps. So get off my doorstep, or I'll summon the guards and have you whipped soundly for trespassing." Affronted on several levels, Kessa assessed their own appearances. Tramps indeed. Hardly. And they weren't on her doorstep, but a public street. Taking a step toward the lady, who had descended the steps of her porch, Kessa challenged, "Surely a woman of such wealth could spare a coin or two for the destitute." "Why, in the name of Athelos, the king hasn't eradicated our streets of trash like you is beyond me. I'd rather see you dangling at the end of a noose than give you any of my hard-earned coin." A sparsely dressed, buff young man with noticeable bruises and welts led a horse from a round back. The horse was as fine as Kessa had ever seen, but appeared every bit as miserable as the young man who led her. He bowed low, holding the reins up for the woman. "Your mare, Mistress Opal." Snatching the reins from the youth, she demanded, "What took you so long, whelp?" Even as he began to squeak an apology, Opal whacked him across the face with her riding crop. Thomas grabbed Kessa's arm to keep her from attacking the woman then and there. Her sudden movement and Thomas's reaction attracted the woman's attention again. "Still here? I suppose you want your share." Leaping upon her mare, Opal steered her a couple steps until she was close enough to whip Kessa. Kessa seized the riding crop before it had a chance to strike. She was about to yank the crop out of Opal's grip and return a healthy dose of retribution when Thomas placed a hand on her shoulder calmly. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding, ma'am," he said with placid politeness. "We are not beggars. We were simply out for a stroll and stopped to admire your property. It's remarkably picturesque, you see." Withdrawing her crop from Kessa without resistance, Opal straightened in her saddle and, with a haughty expression, remarked, "And certainly beyond your limited means. But who am I to crush your pathetic little dreams?" Cruelly spurring her mare forward, she rode off. "Oh, I'm going to enjoy knocking her on her pompous ass." "Shh!" Thomas gestured toward the servant, who was still standing there, a welt the shape of the riding crop on his cheek. Thomas, heading in the same direction Opal had, acknowledged the servant cordially and tossed him a gold coin. "I do hope your situation improves soon," Kessa said to the servant. "No one should be treated so horribly." "Kid, come on," Thomas called, and when she caught up, he explained the job. "Opal is one of the king's lovers." "That doesn't surprise me one bit," she interjected, shutting up as Thomas censured her interruption with a look that would have silenced crickets. "He's fond of her." Unable to resist, Kessa snuck in another comment. "As far as he's capable of being fond of anything." Choosing to ignore this second interruption, Thomas continued, "But he's unhappy with some of the rumors that have reached his ears. He wants her investigated." He emphasized the next word so it would sink in. "Discreetly." "What rumors?" "I want you to discover any illicit activities on your own. Suffice it to say, he fears his embrace isn't the only one she takes pleasure in." Kessa snorted. "Isn't that a little of the pot calling the kettle black?" "You have personal knowledge of that, do you?" "He seems the type." His eyebrows raised, Thomas peered down at her as though he were momentarily impressed, and then reverted to the previous topic. "Discreetly, little miss. The king doesn't want any connection made between Opal and him. Is that clear?" She saluted. "Yes, sir. So, if she is unfaithful, he wants her arrested for another reason. And if she is innocent of infidelity, I'm to do nothing." "Correct." Kessa's chest heaved with an exaggerated inhale and exhale. It was as expressive as she could be. It wasn't as if she could snap her fingers and say, "Shucks." She really hoped Opal was fooling around on Cassius, because she wanted the cruel woman behind bars. "Keep track of things, kid. The king will want a report." "Is that all, Thomas?" "No. We have other minor jobs for you. This one, I wanted to show you personally. I'll tell you about the others as we head back." "As long as you promise to feed me," Kessa said. "Great Ash, I'm starving. It's been hours since I last ate. You got any of your delicious soup at headquarters?" Her belly full of delicious cabbage soup, Thomas's own recipe, Kessa walked back to the stables, arriving just after dusk. She was tired and achy, as Thomas had made her run the obstacle course a couple times while he prepared the soup. He was worried she was a tad out of shape, having been aboard the Pastoria for so long. He wasn't wrong. While aboard the ship, she had a workout routine, but it paled in comparison to the course at headquarters. Out of the corner of her eye, she caught a shadow as she neared the stable door. "Miss Decora?" Malleus Fane strode past her into the stables. "Your sister will be glad to hear you are back safe and sound." Trailing him into the building, Kessa slathered her response in sarcasm. "I have a sister?" Either he lacked investment in the conversation, or he was unwilling to acknowledge the jibe, as his reply was simply, "Indeed, and she would like to see you." "She should try visiting." Turning so suddenly that Kessa almost collided with him, he reported, "She has." "Apparently your busy schedules conflict." He glanced to his right, where Quinn was approaching. "It's hard to visit someone who's never here." No one could burrow under Kessa's skin quite as quickly as the dungeon keeper. Riled, she demanded, "And what's her excuse for the 1.5 years I was here?" "Devotion, determination, and hard work. Qualities she hopes you'll emulate." Scrutinizing her with a look that expressed his disbelief that those hopes would ever come to fruition, Malleus concluded their conversation with, "I will tell her tomorrow morning, Works, if you have no objection." He spared barely a second for her to answer before addressing his protégé. "Are you ready, Quinn?" Quinn replied affirmatively, peeking tentatively at Kessa, whose disgruntled appearance was par for the course whenever his master was present. He wished she'd just accept that Equestria had been training to become a Cyrenian guard, and absence from family and friends was routine during that time. Once she'd reached that goal, her rigorous schedule lightened up, but she was still very busy and involved. It wasn't a career choice for the faint of heart. But with wisdom beyond his years, he realized Kessa needed to blame someone. Her fragile relationship with her sister wouldn't allow her to pin it all on Equestria. Or, worse yet, dig deeper and hook it on herself. Subconsciously, she'd probably already done that. Striding with his usual precision toward the exit, Malleus called back, "Get some sleep, Decora. You need it." Watching Kessa's lips tighten into a thin line and her eyes flash fire, Quinn ratified the comment with a much gentler tone. "You do look tired, Kessa." "That's because I am," she snapped. "Well," Quinn glanced after his master, who'd already gone out the door, and muttered hurriedly but contritely, "Have a good night. Sleep well," before leaving. Although Kessa was peeved from the visit with her primary foe, the possibility that she'd see her sister in the morning helped nullify that feeling. Pausing to wish Celeste, a couple other horses, and the resident cats a good night, she made her way to her room. Falling onto her bed, she was out within the minute. Dragging a comb through the tangled mess that was her hair, Kessa squinted with discomfort. Honestly, she wondered why the king elected elaborate and unique torture techniques when just getting a comb through matted hair would suffice. After double braiding her hair, she washed and threw on a gray-blue, loose-fitting, hip-length tunic and black leggings. As she was pulling on her knee-high boots, she heard Equestria's voice call her name. "Coming!" She hopped on one foot toward her door until she'd finished fastening her second boot. Dressed in a complimentary uniform, Equestria stood in the entranceway. Her somber demeanor transformed into a bright smile when Kessa appeared. After a heartwarming hug, Equestria said, "I've missed you, Kess. You've grown an inch or two. How have you been? How have the stables been treating you? How's Quinn? You're good friends, right? I heard you had an out-of-town job. Childcare, right? Did you like it? Is that wrapped up, or do you have to go back?" Kessa felt a little bit like Tregor as she blinked through the barrage of questions. Clearing her throat, Equestria looked a tad sheepish. Chuckling awkwardly, she said, I guess I shouldn't try and squeeze a year's worth of events into seconds of conversation. I'm sorry. You've been busy. I've been busy. Time flies when you're busy, Kessa said nonchalantly, trying hard to believe the sincerity of her sister's apology. Do you have time for a ride? Yes, Equestria said, liking the suggestion. It had been a while since she'd gone riding for pleasure. My horse is outside. I'll get Celeste. After a splendid canter through Cyrene's countryside, the girls stopped in a picturesque field, complete with wild flowers and a babbling brook. Dismounting, Kessa dug into her saddlebag and tossed her sister an apple, some cheese, and half of the hunk of fresh bread she'd seized from the stable's pantry on the way out. They talked for an hour, catching up on news. Kessa kept her recount short and as close to the truth as possible. This way, it was easier to recall her fabrications if she ever had to. She'd told Quinn she was nannying for a family, so she took many of the adventures she'd had on the Pastoria and twisted them to fit her narrative, including transforming Traeger and Mina into the impish children she'd babysat. She told a quirky story or two before veering the conversation onto her sister and what she'd been up to. Equestria regaled Kessa with stories of being a city guard, the ups and downs. But, like her younger sisters, her recounts were brief and vague at best. She hadn't lost any fervor or devotion to her career, so Kessa supposed Equestria was either hiding something or wasn't sure how much she should share. It was odd. For once they had something more than blood in common. Noon was approaching when the girls entered the Diamond City's gate. Taking a deliberate detour, Kessa led Equestria down the street that Thomas and her had traversed the previous day. Isn't this a nice neighborhood? She remarked casually. Yes, very fancy. It's routinely patrolled. Of course. Rich people didn't want crime and could afford to keep it at bay. Kessa slowed Celeste's gait as they neared Opal's. Just as she was about to comment on how lovely the house was, Equestria piped up. I've always loved this one. Such a lovely setting. Amazed, Kessa pulled Celeste to a standstill and asked, You've seen it before? Sidling her horse next to Celeste, Equestria explained, I'm assigned to this neighborhood twice a week. I admit, it's one of my favorite streets. The scenery is so pretty. It is, Kessa exclaimed, glad that her sister felt the same way. Since this was an excellent segue, she hedged, Now that you're settling nicely into your career, do you ever think about getting a house? I've been thinking about it a little. I do find it convenient, living at the barracks. Kessa bit her tongue on a snarky reply. She wanted to ask Equestria if she had even considered how she felt. Did her sister really expect her to live in the stables for the rest of her life? Quinn could have it. It wasn't for her. Tempering her reply so it wouldn't be so irate, she said, Although I love horses, I hadn't thought I'd be their permanent roommate. Her brow creasing, Equestria appeared to consider that for the first time. After a couple moments, she opened and closed her mouth several times. It seemed she was biting her tongue as well. With a final glance at Opal's house, she spurred her horse forward and asked, Are you unhappy at the stables? Quinn's been content living there for years. Well, what was his alternative? Kessa asked, her voice rising. How could Equestria justify using Quinn against her? Besides, it's not like he'd ever be brazen enough to complain or question his master. After Celeste had caught up, she stated, I'm not unhappy at the stables, but I don't want to be a permanent resident either. I don't think circumstances will always be what they are now, Equestria said matter-of-factly. I'd love to own a home one day, especially if it were like that one. Though that house is way out of our league, even if it were to come on the market. She sighed. I'm just hesitant. I've never owned a home. It's quite a commitment, financially and managerially. Surely you're paid well enough as a city guard, aren't you? And I'd have a little income too. But it isn't reliable, is it? Jobs here and there won't help much. Income aside, I'm not sure I have the time to justify a home just now anyway. One day, Kessa. Kessa recognized that her sister's last statement was tantamount to her considering the subject closed. She could continue arguing until they were both blue in the face, as she used to do, but Kessa's training in manipulation had taught her a thing or two. Most of the time, a seed planted was all that was needed. And her sister was right. They weren't ready. Inwardly, although she hadn't fully realized it, Kessa had already set her sights on opals. She wanted that house and none other, and it wasn't available. Yet. There was no point bickering with her sister. She'd spend her energy on more important things like baiting her trap for opal. It's been nice spending time together, Addie. Expecting Kessa to continue arguing, Equestria did a double take, and then pleasantly agreed. Can we see each other more often now? Perhaps we could set a regular time. Flashing her pearly whites, Equestria said, My schedule does fluctuate, but for now, this time and day works for me. We can update as we need to. Returning the smile, Kessa nodded.